Welcome along to What a Shout, the #1 weekend preview show from the Racing Post and Bet365. I'm Bruce Millington, sitting in for Dave Orton, who is currently sunning himself somewhere very exotic. TV action from Beverley, Goodwood and Newmarket, and who better to guide you through the races than our panel. We've got first up Paul Kealy. Paul, we've woken up to all these awful headlines about cost of living and energy bills going through the roof. Can you give viewers some hope that you're going to bring them some financial joy this weekend?
I hope so, but I mean I've just come off my worst York ever, so I'm probably not in the best position to do so. So yeah, I wouldn't say go mad on my say so at the moment, but I do fancy a few on TV. So fingers crossed.
Jolly good. And Pat Cooney from Bet365. Now, Pat, something very strange happened this week. I woke up, looked outside, and there were these drops of rain falling from the sky. That hasn't happened for a while. But it means soft is back in the going description. That means a bit more of a test for punters, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's, as you say, to look up and think that we've got soft ground at Goodwood, Newmarket and Windsor. It might dry out to good to soft, but nevertheless, we've been looking for fast ground horses. This is a different entity, so you've got horses that you're looking at with good recent form on fast ground, and there's some that have got poor recent form on fast ground but are good on soft, so the market has got to readjust to that. So it's a tricky old time for layers and players alike.
OK, Pat and Kills are primed and ready to go, so let's see if they can dish up some winners. OK, I'm delighted to be joined by a very special guest all the way from beautiful Weathercock House in Upper Lambourn. It's Richard Hughes, former champion jockey and now doing very well as a trainer. In form, Richard Hughes. They're running well, aren't they, mate? You must be happy. That must take the pressure off.
Cheers, Bruce. Yeah, well, they are the last couple of months, but long may it last. It's a tough old game getting these horses healthy and running well.
What's harder, being a jockey or being a trainer?
Oh, being a trainer is much harder because you're running a business. It's not the training the horses is probably the easiest bit. It's running the business and having staff and keeping everyone happy. I've good owners. That's not really a problem. Just running the business in general.
Do you ever hanker for the good old days where you could just get in the car, turn up, go into the weighing room, Valley gives you your stuff, you put your colours on, you just go out and ride them?
Yeah, and it was the most unnatural thing in the world for me, but I can't believe I used to play Candy Crush in the car on the way home. I don't have time to play myself anymore.
I bet you don't. OK, well, a good Saturday for you because you've got a couple of decent live runners on the TV as well. One of which is Candle of Hope, who runs in the 150 at Goodwood. That's a really competitive heat, that, isn't it? What sort of chance would you give her?
Well, we have our black type already from Newbury, which is great. We rode her probably a little bit conservative to make sure we got our black type in Newbury. Tom came in and said it probably should have been second. So we'll be more positive this time, rather to win rather than be played. And I'd rather now the ground wasn't too soft. She won on, it's called a good ground in Perth, but they overwatered and it rode soft. She won, but I didn't think her action was quite as good on that ground. So we'll take a call in the morning. If it's too soft, she might not run. But if three others come out because the ground, then we might run anyway, you know.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And what's it like training for the Queen? Give us a little insight into that, because you have a little chat with her, don't you, on the day of every race?
I'm very privileged and lucky. Wonderful woman, and we give her a ring on race day when they're running and meet her now and again at the races. But an honour and a privilege to train her for her. First paddy ever to train for her.
Brilliant stuff. And so you give her a quick call at a scheduled time, do you? And she'll just ask you how the horse is, and you give her a kind of 2-minute debriefing, and away you go. Is that how it works?
Yeah, and probably she knows. Don't have to fill her in on too much. She's well clued up, and John Warren, I suppose, has told her already, and just have a little chat with her and tell her how I think they're going to run. So, but it's been a lovely surprise, this filly Candle of Hope. We didn't think she was much good there in 4 June. Turned the corner and we haven't looked back with her.
Brilliant stuff. And also at Newmarket tomorrow, Richard, you've got Space Tracker in the what time's that one? That's the 2:10. That looks to have a live chance. Tell us about that one.
Decent horse, this fella now. He won his maiden there in Lingfield on the all-weather. And then we went to Windsor. Ground probably just about okay. I felt I had to run him and he won well. He hung across the track a little bit. Might have been the ground or it might have been Windsor. A lot of horses do it in Windsor. They can run off that stand rail. And then we backed him up, thinking he'd win down in Foss last in a very competitive handicap. And we got well stuffed now. The winner won 3 or 4 lengths. We couldn't figure it out. We beat the favourite, we beat the second favourite. But he ran a good race, so after that race I said I'm just going to wait now till I get a cut in the ground before I run him again. So the rains come just in time. Oh, he's a very useful horse, I think.
Excellent stuff. Well, I'm glad to see you guys, because it's all about the Saturdays, isn't it, Richard? I mean, I know that obviously, you have runners all through the week, but I think you said early on when you made that transition from riding to training that it's just all about being there on the big Saturdays, isn't it?
It is. Now, I don't run too many pie in the sky horses in races that can't win. I don't think it does them any good. Normally, when I have a runner on the Saturday, we really think they deserve their chance in the race, but I'm not running a 100 grand handicap to finish 5th or 6th. I don't think it does them any good for their confidence. Maybe I'm a bit too reserved, but I think I feel I can get them through the whole season if I don't overface them too much.
Absolutely. And Richard, sales season in full swing, and I think you've been busy, haven't you? There's a few exciting new recruits to Weathercock House, isn't there? Tell us about some of them.
Well, this is the most stressful time for any trade. It's great. Last week now I had a man behind me on helped me buy or prepared to buy them. So I went in and bought them, and he liked them and took them off me. So it makes a massive difference. And then he probably bought 6 Jabba, and then I went and bought 6 more on spec, and more or less, bar 2 or 3, I think they're all sold already. So it's going great.
Brilliant. You talk about stress. You go on about how stressful it is for trainers. Whenever I go to Deauville in August, the place is swarming with UK racehorse trainers, all swanning about the place. You're all in that Regimes, that nightclub. What's the Drakkar? Honestly, it looks like the best time of all time. But I suppose seriously, you do need to replenish, and you do need to be right across everything, don't you?
Yeah, well, if you have 750 grand hanging around your neck, those bills come to Richard Hughes, and when that's hanging around your neck and you can't sell them, by God, keeps you up at night.
No, I bet. I absolutely bet. And talking about just training, I mean, Lambourne, obviously we've heard in recent weeks that Joe Chewett and Harry Dunlop have both been forced to give up training for financial reasons. How hard is it right now, Richard? Give us an indication of, just how stressful and how difficult and challenging the role is. Obviously, there's some brilliant bits to being a racehorse trainer, but it does look pretty much the most stressful profession you could choose, isn't it?
Yeah, like it's the most rewarding thing ever when a horse wins, more so than when you're a jockey. When you're past the line as a jockey, you just write, what's my next winner going to be? When you're training, you sit back after the race, and you really do get a lot of enjoyment out of it, fulfillment as well. But with the price of everything going up between feed, shavings, hay, we put up our training fees last year, which was overdue because I couldn't do it during COVID. People were very kind and kept their horses here. And it just feels like we've passed that. The little amount we put them up has just gone out the window straight away. Everything got so expensive.
And could you see more trainers following, Chewett and Dunlop out of the profession?
Joe's a great pal of mine. I admire him hugely for what he's done. He was very brave to what he's done. Joe's a better trainer than me. He's had a lot of big winners. It's the nature of the game. It's the nature of the beast. You go out of favour for a few months, your horses aren't right, and all of a sudden you're on that slippery slope. I admire Joe because he's getting out while he's ahead. But if you don't have 50 horses in the yard, you need 50 horses to get yourself away. And why would you go do something for nothing and end up paying all the bills yourself? It's the first sign of madness. So well done, Joe and Harry, for biting the bullet at the right time.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of talk about fixture lists as well, Richard. Where do you stand on that? Because obviously they've just announced the 2023 fixture list. It looks like it's going to be roughly the same as this year. There's been calls from Rafe Beckett and various other people in the National Trainers Federation for a big cut in the number of races and the number of meetings. Where do you stand on this?
The way I stand on it, I don't know who's actually in charge. Is the race courses running in our business, or is the VHA running it? Can't realise why have Windsor and Kempton on the 6 meetings on a Saturday, and you come to a Tuesday and you've no meeting on. Like, I just wonder who's running the show. We should say when there's meeting, and then you want to bid for those days, you bid for them. If not, you don't get them. But I can't. All the racing crammed in on a weekend. It's a bit crazy. It was very hard for our staff, I know that.
And talking about staff, Richard, is that still a problem? I mean, we've seen the workforce be reduced because we're not letting as many people into the country who would be potential stable staff. Is that an ongoing problem, or is it calmed down a little bit?
It's an ongoing problem. It's society in general has changed. When we were young and grown up, you got a kick in the backside and you get on with it. People are a bit softer now. Young people coming in the game, they get a headache. They don't want to come in. It's just a little bit different, and I can understand. People are brought up differently nowadays. A little bit softer, maybe. And the old-fashioned way, you're a grand, kick on. Those things have to change in racing as society has changed. And I just think we have to be a bit more aware of that. Luckily enough, I just managed to get a sponsorship license to bring foreigners in, which will really help me ease the tension in the yard. I have a great team at the moment. And for 2 years, I was employing people that would come in for 2 weeks and leave and upset the whole yard. And I just said, from now on, it's not worth bringing those guys in. I'd rather lads do an extra hour and a half than bringing someone in to upset everyone in the space of 2 weeks.
It does sound challenging, but I suppose a winner makes all the dark clouds disappear. So hopefully you'll have a couple this weekend. Before I let you go, Richard, and thank you so much for being on What a Shout, I'm going to get the view of Paul Kealy and Pat Cooney on this. If Baaeed, if you got a phone call suddenly from the right people saying, we've had a big fallout with William Haggas and we want you to train Baaeed and you can choose where he runs next, what would you do?
Oh, I'd probably take the safe route, to be honest. Is it all very well said?
Oh, come on, Hughes.
Well, it'd be great to see him running the yard, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but if I got him tomorrow morning, I wouldn't take any chances. I'm not going to get him beat.
Fair enough. Yeah, I get that. But we all want to see him run in the Arc. Would he win the Arc?
You want to see him get beat?
We don't want to see him get beat, but he's bred to stay further. He was fantastic at York, wasn't he? Come on. He'd win the Arc, wouldn't he?
Personally, I think he would, yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
and Richard, one last question. How's the golf handicap? Or do you actually still have time to get down? Because you're one of racing's best golfers, aren't you?
I can hit a bit further than I used to. The legs are a bit stronger putting on 2 stone, but yeah, it's on the back seat a little bit.
Good man. Okay, Richard, thank you so much for joining us on What a Shout. Good luck with your runners this weekend, and I hope you continue to flourish as a trainer. Great to see you. Thanks very much.
Yeah, take care. Bye.
Richard Hughes there, brilliant interview with him. A fantastic jockey and doing really well as a trainer. Let's get stuck into the weekend action. Okay, before we get stuck into the big Saturday races, we should look back on the brilliant week we had at York recently. And there's still a very burning question hanging in the air. It's fascinating, loads and loads of racing fans. Where will Baaeed run next? Now, I did a little Twitter poll after he destroyed them in the Juddmonte International. And it is quite clear that the vast majority of racing fans want him to go to Longchamp for the Arc. Of course, that doesn't mean it will happen. Keels, what do you think Baaeed will do next, and what would you like to see him do next?
Well, I think you just answered your own question, really. The people want him to run in the Arc. I think everybody does. I think he'll go to the Champion Stakes. I think we are used to all people in racing. There's not a dig at William Haggas at all, but we're used to all people in racing under both codes taking the safe route these days. Now, with Baaeed, I underestimated him going into York because he was workmanlike, beating average horses over a mile. But it's long been said that he's bred for further than a mile, and he went up to further than a mile for the first time and absolutely thrashed. Much better horses than he'd been beating at a mile. So it looks like he'll stay a lot further. It looks like he's got a hell of a lot in hand, because without him, it's looking an average Arc, isn't it? Where are all the top 3?
Not even sure average. I think that could be.
Yeah, well below average. It's very, it's there to be run. It's there to be won. I think that's where everybody thinks you should go. There's another element to this as well, though, because obviously William Haggas is sitting proudly atop the Trainers' Championship at the moment.
That can't come into it. That should not come into it. This is not about William Haggas. This is about creating a legend. Racing needs legends. It needs See the Stars. It needs, going all the way back to Nijinsky and obviously more recently Frankel.
This is it.
You've got to make legends.
Absolutely. I'm not denying that. I mean, See the Stars is the one who actually stands out more than Frankel for the variation in what he did, having won a Guineas, a Derby, an Arc. Been top class over all trips. Frankel stayed. You could argue within his comfort zone. He only ran over 1 mile 2 furlong twice in his life. Would he have stayed in the Arc? Everybody thinks he would have won. He would have been as short a price for it as Baaeed is now with a run, 5 to 4. With a run, if you knew he was going to run, you'd take it.
You certainly would. Now, it's quite interesting, isn't it, Pat, from a betting perspective, because some bookmakers are betting all-in runs, so if you back Baaeed for the Arc and he doesn't run, you do your money, and others are offering non-run and no bet. So punters do have that option. You're just doing it straight anti-post. If he doesn't run, your bet is a loser. Yeah. What price do you have Baaeed now?
He's round about 5 and not really laying it, but of course we've got fingers on the button just for when they say, yes, we're going to have a crack at it. Me personally, I think he should go for the Arc. It's only a furlong and a half further. Jim Crowley took an age to pull him up at York, didn't he? And when we were mulling it over in May, June, you were thinking, hang on, you've got Adair's running, you've got this is going to run, you've got maybe Desert Crown's going to go for it, you might have Emily Upjohn and all. It looked like it could be a real strong Arc de Triomphe. Now you look at the prices with respect to them all, Alpinista, Baaeed versus Alpinista. There's only one winner there, isn't there? And I think circumstances change. What does he have to beat? This might be the softest Arc de Triomphe you've had for a while, and it would just cement his legacy, wouldn't it?
Of course.
And then you'd be saying, and then in years to come, the question is, how good was he? So, well, he was really good over a mile and really good over a mile and 2. If it had gone for the Arc and won it, then maybe he would have been the best. Just roll the dice and run him.
Of course.
It seems though the Arc was never really in the conversation amongst the connections up until the Juddmonte, but he's a straightforward horse, isn't he? He's got there's no kinks about him. He's just straightforward, and you watch him in the Juddmonte, and he was just ultra impressive. And it's going to take a good horse to get him off the bridle, and he doesn't even pull hard. If he were mine, I would be running him in the Arc.
I think the only bonus if he does go to Ascot and dot up there is that it does open the way for a couple of brilliant stories. I mean, I think Pile Driver winning an Arc would just be brilliant because I think he's got a great story. And I would love Mark Prescott to win an Arc.
Yes.
That would just be brilliant. And I know that Alpinista v Baaeed might be a mismatch, but Alpinista against the rest without Baaeed comes into the equation.
Yeah, of course.
OK, before we move on, just going from York, if people have got their Racing Post horse trackers open, I want one horse each from you to follow. Kills, who are you going to go for?
Yeah, I think I'm going to back Quickthorn for the Champion Stayers. I'm not sure he's getting the credit he deserved because obviously he got that easy lead. Well, you think he got an easy lead, but I thought he went hard enough, and he was, having been 8 lengths up turn of a home, and when they all started rowing, he was still eased down to win by twice that. And just since he's gone from the front, he's looked a different animal altogether. He's still a young horse. He could just be improving rapidly and be a top-class stayer, and I don't see how he's going to finish because he handles any ground. Remember, it was soft when he won at Royal Ascot, and they said he needed it. Now he knows he goes on pretty fast ground as well. So, any conditions won't bother him in the slightest.
He was given that race, though.
Well, he may have been given that race, but that's what I'm saying. If you're given an easy lead and you say 7, 8 lengths clear turning for home, everything else starts rowing away. You still win by double that easing down. Yeah. You know what I mean? So had they been on his tail, he'd have won by 8. You know what I mean? He was just.
I don't think that's right. I just think he was given such an easy lead that they couldn't get near him because all he had to do was keep going at a normal pace. They didn't have loads of energy left because they'd gone so slowly.
They tried. Well, if they hadn't have gone so slowly.
They just went too slowly, didn't they?
If they went too slowly, they should have been able. They should have been able to finish the race out. But he just went away again.
It's an interesting one, that. Yeah, it was a fascinating race. But funny enough, normally when the jockeys all fall asleep like that, they actually get more grief than they did on this occasion. I thought they got a bit of an easy ride.
Well, this is it. If Quickthorn had won by 2.5 lengths with the whole field closing down, they'd have got absolutely crucified. But that's not what happened.
Fair enough. Okay, quick thorn for Kills. Who for you, Pat?
I've always liked the Melrose handicap at the York meeting. It's for 3-year-olds. It's a real stepping stone. It's always a very, very good race. This year, I thought, well, I'm not so sure really, but it was won by Solcombe, William Haggis and Holly Doyle, who I didn't necessarily fancy because he'd been slow out the stalls in his last couple of races. And even though it's a mile 4 or whatever, I just thought it's quick ground. It might not get back into the race, but came through full of running and won very, very impressively. And that is a horse going places. So I like the Melrose, and I definitely like the Issues winner, and that's called Solcombe of William Haggis.
Lovely stuff. Right, without further ado, let's get into the Saturday action. Let's kick off then with the first of our ITV races we're going to look at. It's the 150 at Goodwood. 7 furlongs the trip for the William Hill Prestige Fillies Stakes. And although there's only 9 runners, Kills, it's really competitive, this, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult to get a handle on this because they're 2-year-olds, so we've got next to no easy ground form to deal with. There's loads of horses in here who've already tried and been beaten at or below the level of a Group 3. So I thought to myself, well, I'm going to try something that hasn't been. And I backed Bright Diamond earlier in the week. Now, obviously, it's made things a little bit harder because of the ground, because we've no idea whether she'll act on it. But obviously, Carl Burke's got some very, very good 2-year-olds. He got obviously dramatised one at Ascot, and he had the winner at York of the Lowther, even though it wasn't dramatised. And Bright Diamond made a really, really bright start to her career when winning at Newmarket. She won by 9 lengths. And considering she fell out of the stalls and was the first one off the bridle, it was very impressive. Now, they did go slowly. Time isn't great overall, but 9 lengths, the widest winning margin of any first-time out juvenile on the July course since at least 2011.
Couldn't you gone further back? You stopped at 2011.
My Race Form Interactive stops there, unfortunately, so that's what I use it on. But yeah, there've been some great horses win by wide margins there, like Kingman Calix, Far years ago. None of them won by as far as 9 lengths. There have also been some absolute rubbish that's won by wide margins as well. Let's not pretend there's anything different. So where she fits in, I don't know, but she was very impressive, and we just have to wait and see. But she was the one I came down on.
Okay, bit of a head scratcher to start with, Pat. Where have you landed on?
Well, we've got no soft ground form to go on really, and it's interesting, Bruce. When we price these races up with the 5-day decks, typically you go, what's Charlie Appleby running? What's William Haggis running? That'll be favourite, that'll be second favourite. So straight away, Charlie Appleby's got Fairy Cross, who brings probably just about the best level of form to the table. But be no bargain, really. I could see that one maybe easing a little bit. I've ended up fancying Queen Ollie because she's got some excellent form. She was 3rd to Morge at Newmarket, 4th to Mediate of Aidan O'Brien's, who's a real win machine at the Royal Ascot meeting. So I think on balance she'd be the one for me. But I do look at Bright Diamond, and I didn't think she'd be winning by 9 lengths with 2 furlongs to go. And she's the classic. If she'd been trained by Charlie Appleby or Aidan O'Brien, she would have opened up as favourite for this race and would all be looking for Guineas quotes and everything else. So she's the one that still represents a degree of value for me. But I've ended up going with the form book, and I'm going with the 4th to Mediate, and that's Queen Ollie. But a tricky race, though. The others to consider as well.
Very, very tricky start for us. OK, let's move on to the 2:05 at Beverley. 1 mile and 2 is the trip for the William Hill Silver Cup. And James Tate has the favourite with Weight to Excel. Pat, you can start. Will Weight to Excel excel?
Well, it's definitely improving, and races off at 92 today, having won off at 82, then 87. So fair enough, James Tate obviously has horses like this. So I think on balance you'd have to say a worthy favourite. There's a horse in the race, Post Impressionist, who was all the rage at the Royal Ascot meeting and didn't run very well, and then managed to get beat at Chester last time out when I thought it should be a good thing. I thought that was a desperately disappointing run. So when a horse like that sits there as second favourite at 5-2, and there's not much to glean from its last 2 runs, I don't know, I wouldn't be fancying him, but clearly he must work very well. I've ended up thinking Kitsune Power of Roger Varian's, on the basis he was second to Ajero last time out. He went up 4 for that, which seems a bit harsh when something's winning and goes up 5 and you finish second, go up 4. But it was against Ajero and older horses, and now dropping back into its own grade. So at prices, I think Kitsune Power is probably a better bet for me.
OK, Kills, just a quick word on the Beverley ground. Obviously, it was like an east-west split, basically, with that rain, I think, wasn't it? Went up the east side. All the tracks there got a good old dowsing. Good to soft current at Beverley, but no rain in the forecast. Could it actually dry out quite dramatically?
Yeah, I mean, Good to soft will probably dry out to good by the day.
Simply because the
You know,
water
because, well,
table
but
presumably is so low,
exactly,
isn't it?
yeah. But I mean, obviously, the tracks have had water on them, so it won't disappear as quick as it will from your back garden. But that's for sure. But by the same token, a good to soft at the end. We're talking about. It must have been later in the day. So let's say 4 p.m. on Thursday. By the time you're getting to 2 p.m. on Friday, you're at best part of 48 hours for it not to rain. So yeah, it'll be goodish.
Okay. Who'd you like?
I'd have thought. Well, I watched Wait to Excel win at Ripon, and it's one of those, a bit like James Tate's Royal Acclaim, a big horse who really looks the part going through the race, and did win easily. Had a ton in hand, but then you look at the form. Everything that's come out of that race since has been beaten out of sight. Just when you weigh up how good a horse looks with the form itself. You just worry about it, so I can't get involved at that price. That Post Impressionist, second favourite. Second to Eldar Elderov at Newcastle, but bombed twice since, and 5 to 6 last time at Chester, so not going the right way. I came down on Knightswood, just because he's been running in some very good handicaps. He won 2 small field, a maiden and a novice, earlier in the season, went straight to Royal Ascot, who actually moved into second a couple of furlongs out at Ascot and then dropped away. That was in the State Secret race. Denny ran behind. No, sorry, that was in Mr. Cuts race. Denny ran behind New London in a big race at Newmarket. Didn't run at all well there, but he showed a lot more at Goodwood last time, behind Keys Coister, who ran a cracker to finish second in the Melrose afterwards. So again, he looked to threat a couple of furlongs out, but dropped away over that 1 mile 3 furlong trip. And I just think a small field might play to his strengths. He tends to race fairly prominently. The Johnston team have a fantastic record with 3-year-old handicappers at Beverley, and I thought he might represent a little bit of value.
Excellent. We're going to stick with Beverley for our next race. It's the 240. It's the big betting heat of the day. It's the Beverley Bullet over 5 furlongs. And Tis Marvellous won it last year. Absolutely bolted up, nearly 4 lengths. He's favourite again. Keels, do you think Clive Cox's horse can follow up here?
He's the one to beat. He's the one to beat on ratings and on the form of that and on the form of his win later that season. But he's only run twice this year and he's been well below it. And he's had a break. And for a sprinter to have like 2 and a bit months off hints at a problem, doesn't it? Because, I mean, they normally run every couple of weeks. Like, they're busy horses when it comes to racehorses, sprinters. So, yeah, he's the one to beat, but he has enough negatives for me. So I wouldn't have him as favourite. I'm a massive fan of Corker. I'm hoping that a stiff 5 furlongs might help. Now, I would want it to dry out for him because he's said to want fast ground. But when he won at York earlier on in the season, he just completely outclassed the field of handicappers, and I backed him for Royal Ascot after that. He missed the break by 10 lengths, but only got beat 3.5, and he was finishing really strongly at the death. Last time he was third to Royal Acclaim at York. That was a race which made Royal Acclaim favourite for the Nunthorpe, which was, a bit daft, really. But he looked then as though at this level, York's 5 furlongs is a bit quick for him because he's always slow away. So hopefully a stiffer track. He's got to find his way through. Not very easy to do at Beverley, but I mean it does happen. And nowadays you do see him finishing down the outside, don't you? Down the middle of the track quite a lot. So
if you were Ben Curtis and you're in 5, what would you do? Would you just ride him for luck, as they say? Or?
Yeah, he's going to ride him for luck. He's going to drop. I would imagine he will drop him on the rail, shortest route, etc., and then try and find a way out. But
Keel's using his extensive experience as a jockey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I put them videos on the other day to see what happens. But yeah, I mean, the chances are he's going to be last or nearly last in the first 50, 60 yards, so he's not going to have much choice anyway.
Yeah,
it's a funny track though, isn't it, Kills? Because you would think with that a 5 furlong where they've pretty much got to do a full 180 that you do leave yourself a little bit short of room, but they do rattle home there, don't they?
Yeah, and if the ground stays on the easy side, they do quite often shun that far rail anyway. Like, the ground has always been, when it was soft ground, they quite come to the near side. I doubt that'll happen, given that we've had a couple of days to dry.
And if any of you are thinking of labelling Kills an after time with his Royal Acclaim comments, he did actually say in his tipping preview that it was a bad favourite, so he said it before as well as after. Pat, what do you make of the Beverley Bullet?
Well, it's been no help at all from an anti-post 5-day deck thing because everyone was waiting for the draw. Ironically, the one horse that we did lay was Ali, a choice of Kevin Ryan, the 3-year-old, and that's out there in stall 12. So anyone who took the early price there, that's going to be at least that now because everyone just majors so much on the draw. This is one of these stats that just is good and true over the years. the lower the better, really. So I'm not so sure Tis Marvellous will even go our favourite, really, because as Keels has alluded to there, last year's version, fine, I'll give you that, but not much to be gleaned from this time around. My eye is drawn to Stuart Williams' horse Existent in stall 2, so that's a positive. And, not far behind, probably second rated on the official ratings. Form figures are a bit miserable, but that doesn't tell the true story. Got an O's, 4s and 9s, but they've typically been in Group 1s and Group 2s, beaten 3 lengths, beaten 4 lengths. So I'm just working on the basis. I want to be drawn 1, 2, 3 or 4, and that's probably just about the best form of those with those low numbers. So Existent for me, but there's going to be one winner and 12 unlucky losers this race.
OK, let's turn our attention now to the one TV race from Newmarket on Saturday's ITV programme. It's the 3:15. 6 furlongs is the trip for the Jennings Bet Hopeful Stakes. Last Saturday, the brilliant Summergan got it done. Can he do it again? We talked about these busy sprinters. He rarely gets a Saturday off. Summergan for you, Kills, are you going to look elsewhere?
Yeah, Summergan's great, isn't he? I mean, if the ground was fast, I think he'd be extremely hard to beat. He has won on soft ground though, and at Newmarket. But I mean, I think overall at the Newmarket tracks, he's been out of the first 2 only a couple of times in his life, and one of those was in the July Cup. And he won this race last year when nobody really fancied him. He bounced back to form. When you look at that race last week at York, there's no way he's going to win 2 furlongs out. Literally no way at all. And he's actually won quite easily in the end. He seems to be back in the form he was in, and we see it year in year out with these sprinters. Yes, they lose form at some point as they get a bit older, but they bounce back. I mean, some of them have gone on to 11, 12 years old. I can't remember the name of him. What's the name of him? What's the name of the really fast sprinter that kept going on?
Duke of Frenzy?
No, Duke of Frenzy's one of them.
He's one of them.
He won
13, he's still going.
You won't believe it when you get it. Won the dash about 3 times.
Caspian.
That's it, Caspian Prince, yeah. He still rated 100 odd when he was 12.
This is worrying, Kills, right? Because Paul Kealy has got the worst memory in the world. The only thing he can ever remember is horse racing, OK? He'll look at a race and go, I backed the winner of this in 1993. So if you can't even remember horses now,
I put a kettle on this morning, right? I guarantee you now there's a cup with a tea bag still in it and it's empty. I've not had a drink this morning. Ridiculous. So I'm starting forgetting horses now. It is a bit worrying. Still they're flat horses. I don't forget the jumpers.
I've forgotten who you've tipped.
Summergan. I like.
You're going to go with Summergan.
I like Summergan. I think Great Ambassador will run a big race if the ground's not too bad for him. He's another one. He was placed in a Stewards Cup on soft ground, but he's been taken out because of soft ground before as well, and won a lot of his best form was on a quicker surface. But yeah, I think Summergan's very much the one to beat, especially given the form he was in last week.
Pat, this might not be the biggest Saturday in terms of quality, but for a lot of punters in the betting shops and sitting at home and going through the cards, a horse like Summergan is a horse that they latch onto because he's trusty, he wins, he runs everywhere. He's a real favourite, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely. And when he runs in these big handicaps, because we're now in an era of first 6, first 7 places, I tend to find I always back horses like Summergan each way. I bet you can get in the E-ball last week.
I did the double. I did the each-way double, but not the singles.
Yeah. And you can Glenn, well, he's that far away from finishing 4th, so you get plenty of value. And horses like him are always popular, and he will be again. The market at the moment is Great Ambassador. I think we've all half sussed him as a potential Air Gold Cup winner, maybe, so he'll be interesting. There's an interesting runner, Dana, of the Crisfords. Hasn't run for 364 days, so I wouldn't imagine that would be too strong in the market. Jamie Spencer booked. So I'm trying to find the value given the softer ground. Manican's interest in a John Ryan that had a Beverly Bullet entry, but they've come here. But my eye's drawn to The Dream, number 10, Charlie Fellows, in good form recently. Had a couple of winners last night. And all this horse's form is on soft ground. And you have to be a bit lenient with some of the defeats, but I'm just working on the basis The Dream backward given the ground, first time cheap pieces and stable in form. Harry Davis is in booked, he can't claim in that race, but nevertheless I ended up thinking I could see her maybe outrunning her prices.
Yeah, Fellows, couple of winners in the Racing League. What's the punter interest in the Racing League like this year?
It's good, isn't it? I mean I'm not so I find the non-racing side of it a little bit on the tedious side with the points and the teams. No one's bothered about who's going to win the teams, but the actual races, they're good competitive handicaps, and the punters like favourites, handicaps. The favourites are typically 3-4 to 1 the field, and they're ideal. We tend to pay first 4 if there's 10 places or more, so there's something for everyone there, and it's good to see the people like Dettori rocking up, and of course he made the show his own last night, really. But I'm a fan of the racing. The razzmatazz, I think you can keep to one side.
You like the banter kills, don't you?
I love
You're
the
here
banter.
for the
I love the
banter.
banter, mate. I watched all the racing last night. I backed 3 horses, finished 2nd, 3rd and 4th, and the TV was on mute until the came out of the stalls for every single race.
Are we being a bit snooty here and a bit cruel? I mean, you know, ITV gives Matt Chapman a chance to present, don't we? And he gets involved.
Look,
and
you can't, you know, you can't knock them for trying to make something work. I mean, they're covering it, and then you got to expect them to do so. But by the same token, we know that the vast majority of punters, people who are going to tune in and watch races, could not care less about a team event. It's as simple as that.
I think the regionalisation is a better concept, isn't it?
Yes, that does work. But it seems odd to have, you know, the jockeys, and you think, well, why is he riding for that team? Shouldn't he be riding for that team? So that gets lost in it. We've hardly had any inquiries to price up the teams during it, or even the top jockey. It's just very, very tricky to do in that respect. But, as I say, if you give us 7 handicaps on mainstream TV, all good quality races, and it's a tick from us.
And don't forget ITV also on air on Sunday this week, Goodwood and Beverley. So
Seller on.
Yeah, that's
There's a
brilliant.
cellar on the telly,
Can you believe that?
Well, I think if they expand Cheltenham, they should put a cellar in, a really high quality cellar. I think that would be brilliant as an extra race. Anyway, let's focus on Saturday's racing, and let's look at the highest quality event.
Cross-country chase, by the way.
Cross-country chase.
The Cellar.
The cellar. I thought you liked the cross-country now, right there. All week we've been dreading, in a way, the Celebration Mile, which is the 3:35 of Goodwood, because there are only 5 horses in it at the 5-day stage, but they are still standing their ground. So it's nothing if not competitive. We've got 5 runners, and we'll see who the lads think will come across the line in front. Pat, we've got a fairly strong favourite, haven't we?
Yeah, Mutasabik is the favourite, Charlie Hill's Jim Crowley. And this horse ran in a Group 2 last time, which indeed this is, and he was just chinned by Chindit. My only problem with Mutasabik, we seem to make excuses for him. He's been beaten in his last 3, and you could say, well, that went wrong for him, that went wrong for him, and that went wrong for him. But he has got form on soft ground. He's probably the best horse in the race. 5 runners, that's probably going to help from a tactical point of view. Is he a bet at 11 to 10? Well, I could open the Racing Post on Saturday and find far better value than in other races than him at 11 to 10. I'm very much in the, I suppose he'll win, granted a clear run section, really, but I wouldn't think he's a good thing. Escobar, talking of horses coming, you know, popular horses, he's always popular as well with the old dartboard colours. Back to form last time out. Is he a group horse? Probably not, but he might be in this race. And then you look at Jadomi of the Crisfords. You know, he won last time out. He had 270 days off, and then prior to that he had 370 days off, and now he's had come back in here off 27 days off. He could be one of those horses who's far better than the form would suggest. But by elimination, you keep coming back to Mutasabik. Is he a bet? Not for me, but likely winning, yes.
The enthusiasm oozing out of Pat Cooney there. Kills, you're not going to tip the fat here, are you? If I know you, you're going to be taking him on.
I tell you what, I was looking at this race when there was 5 5-day entries. There were 3 of them had entries in other races this weekend.
Yeah.
So I had a sneaky little each way bet on Escobar, who was one of the only 2 that was definitely coming here. And I still think he's got a chance. Now, think about Mutasabik. The idea of opposing him earlier in the week is 1, he was 4 to 6, and 2, it was going to be fast ground. Now he has run twice on these downhill tracks, Goodwood and Epsom. He beat 1 horse home in this race last year. Didn't seem to handle the track. He didn't seem to handle the bend at all at Epsom when he got beat as 11 to 8 favourite on Derby Day. So I'm thinking there's definite reasons to oppose him. But perversely, I think because the ground is soft, it'll make it easier for him to handle it. Mm-hmm. And his chances improved while his price has drifted out. I wouldn't say now he's a horrible 11 to 10 shot. He was a horrible 4 to 6 shot on fast ground. Yeah. I wouldn't say he's a horrible 11 to 10 shot. I'm hopeful that Escobar will run his race. Love Escobar. It was a cracking run behind Blue for You the other day. Only just caught by a well-handicapped stablemate.
As Pat says, he's like Summer Game.
Exactly.
He just turns up and he gives it his all every time.
He doesn't win
Brilliant.
very often, but he doesn't mind whatever the ground is. He's won a Balmoral on heavy ground. Barely raceable it was that day. And he's run Goodwood well several times in the past, albeit without winning. Is he a proper group Group 2 horse? No, he's not. But is this a proper Group 2 race? No, it isn't. So I give him a fair chance. If the ground stays very soft, the rag, Stormy Antarctic isn't out of it. But I've had a few good each way on Escobar. I'm happy to stick with that.
And Keels, you mentioned each way at the start of the week. If all 5 run here, a lot of people think, 5 runs, you don't get involved with each way, but you're actually getting 40% of the field for you here. Arguably, each way with a quarter the 2 in a 5-runner heat is the best each way.
Yeah, it can be
terms.
okay. I mean, again, it all depends on price. I mean, if you think the horses should be a lot shorter than 5-1, then why not back it each way? Because you're getting much bigger price than realistically it should be to hit the frame.
Obviously, they always finish 3rd when you do that in those races. But anyway, the lads with their views there on the big TV races. Now let's get the naps. Right then, if you're only having one bet this Saturday, Pat Cooney, who would it be?
I'm going to the opener at Beverley, the 130, and it's the top weight called Majestic, trained by Mick Shannon with Ben Curtis aboard. Also began life in a bumper, amazingly, but then started off over 10 furlongs, showed promise, same again next time, dropped to a mile to win, an ordinary novice stakes, it must be said, last time out. But it was progression yet again. He drops another half a furlong this time around, but he looks pacey enough. He got the uphill finish at Beverley, and I think he's rated 82. He won off. When he won last time, it was rated 79, and I thought he's a horse that's going places, albeit at the
Seems
right
like
level.
a career in reverse, doesn't it? A bumper and then coming down and down into it. He'd be off to America to race in the court of races.
In the Breeders' Cup sprint, yeah. So Majestic, I thought. He's a horse in that level. I think he's overpriced in the opener at Beverley tomorrow. So
That's
Majestic.
130, yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. Paul Kealy?
Yeah, well, with all the rain we had at Goodwood on Thursday, I'm hoping it stays on the soft side for Udalali in the 225. He ran twice at Goodwood last year. He got beat, he was second, giving weight to Ross Colin when Ross Colin was rated about 86, and he's 100 plus now. And he's in the same race again. And then he won at Glorious Goodwood on the Saturday. Official ground was given as good to soft, but it was changed to soft after that race, and it was borderline heavy anyway. And he's only had easy ground once this year. That was at York, when then only just touched off by Escobar in a handicap. Ran really, really well that day. His 5th last time was officially on soft ground at Haydock. But anybody who follows times in the racing post times also, it was good. It was one of the most inaccurate descriptions you'll see. It still wasn't a bad run. What he wants is a bit of cutting the ground, but with 2 career bests at Goodwood with cutting the ground, I think he's got to be backed.
Okay, I fancy one in the 6:05 at Windsor on Saturday. It's a really good listed race, this. 3.5 is the trip, and I fancy Cresta, who's a horse who's been on my radar for a long time, trained by the Meads. He was a good 5th behind the Ledger favourite in the Gordon Stakes last time at Goodwood. That was a decent enough run. This is very competitive, but I think the cut in the ground might just be the difference. So I'm going to go Cresta in the 6:05 at Windsor. Those are your weekend naps. Okay, that's it for another What a Shout. Dave Orton will be back next week. Thank you very much to Pat Cooney and to Paul Kealy. Most of all, though, thank you for watching. Don't forget, bet responsibly. And to enhance your chance of betting profitably, download the Racing Post app from the App Store or the Google Play Store. If you've not done so, Dave's back next week for another What a Shout.